Alma sat quietly in the bustling Nairobi airport lounge, her fingers nervously drumming on her leather bag. At 65, she felt out of place among the travelers half her age. This trip to Africa was supposed to be her escape, a desperate attempt to break free from the solitude that had consumed her since her husband passed 2 years ago, but the loneliness had followed her here, refusing to loosen its grip. As she shifted uncomfortably in her chair, a young man entered the lounge, his confidence streed. Drawing her attention, he was tall with a bright smile that seemed to light up the room. Alma noticed how effortlessly he interacted with the staff and other travelers, his charm evident in every gesture. When their eyes met, Musa's expression softened and he walked over. "Excuse me ma'am, do you need help with your bag?" he asked, his deep voice warm and inviting. Alma hesitated for a moment before nodding. She'd been struggling with the oversized suitcase since leaving the hotel, but her pride had stopped her from asking for assistance. "Thank you," she said softly as Musa hoisted the bag onto his shoulder with ease. "I didn't want to trouble anyone." "It's no trouble," Musa replied with a grin. "It's part of my job as a guide." "Are you here for the safari tour?" Alma nodded again, surprised by his intuition. "Yes, I am. It's my first time in Africa. I've always wanted to visit, but life got in the way." Musa studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. "Well, you're here now, that's what matters." They fell into easy conversation as they waited for their respective groups to be called. Musa spoke about his work as a guide, his dreams of one day starting his own tea company. Alma found herself drawn to his enthusiasm and ambition. He seemed so full of life, so sure of his place in the world. It was a stark contrast to the emptiness she'd been feeling. "And you?" Musa asked, breaking her reverie. "What brought you here?" Alma hesitated. How could she put into words the ache of losing her husband, the endless days spent alone in a house that no longer felt like home? Instead, she offered a small smile. "I suppose I wanted an adventure." Musa nodded as if he understood more than she was saying. "Africa is full of adventure, you'll see." When the announcement came for their groups to board, Musa helped her with her bag once more. As they parted ways, he turned to her with a playful smile. "Maybe we'll meet again. The world has a funny way of bringing people together." Alma watched him go. Feeling a strange flutter in her chest, she shook her head, chastising herself for her foolishness. He was young, vibrant and full of possibilities, and yet for the first time in years she felt something within her, a faint glimmer of excitement, a flicker of hope. The open plain stretched endlessly as the safari jeep bounced along the uneven path. Alma sat in the back seat, her camera in hand, marveling at the vastness of the African landscape. Musa, seated in the driver's seat, glanced at her through the rearview mirror and smiled. "You'll want to keep your camera ready," he said, his voice carrying over the hum of the engine. "This area is known for its elephants." Alma adjusted her hat and aimed the lens toward the horizon. "It's incredible," she murmured. "I've never seen anything like this." Musa chuckled. "That's the magic of Africa. It has a way of surprising you when you least expect it." The jeep came to a stop and Musa hopped out, extending a hand to help Alma. The touch was brief, but she noticed the warmth of his skin and the ease of his strength. Together they walked toward a shade area where a group of elephants grazed in the distance. As the afternoon stretched on, their conversation grew more personal. Alma found herself sharing fragments of her life she rarely discussed. She told Musa about her years as a teacher, the joy she found in shaping young minds, and the emptiness that followed her retirement. Musa listened intently, nodding in understanding. "You know," he said, leaning against the jeep, "when I was younger I always thought life would get easier with age, but hearing you talk I realize the challenges just change." Alma smiled faintly. "It's not the years that weigh you down, it's the things you lose along the way." The honesty in her words lingered between them. Musa looked away, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I lost my father when I was 15, he admitted. "It's why I started working so young, to take care of my family." Alma hadn't expected such vulnerability, but it deepened her respect for him. "You've done well for yourself, Musa. It's not easy to face life's hardships and still carry yourself with such grace." His eyes met hers, and for a moment the world seemed to shrink around them. There was no age, no cultural divide, just two people connecting over shared pain and resilience. The spell was broken when Musa's phone buzzed. He answered quickly, speaking in Swahili. Alma turned away, focusing on the elephants, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something between them had shifted. Later, as the group gathered around the campfire, Alma noticed Musa's easy camaraderie with the others. He laughed and joked, his charm effortlessly pulling people in. Yet when his eyes found hers across the fire, there was a softness in his gaze that seemed meant only for her. When the night grew cold, Musa offered her his jacket. "You'll need this," he said simply. "I'm," hesitated before accepting it, her fingers brushing against his. The small gesture sent a ripple through her, a reminder of the warmth she hadn't felt in years. As she lay in her tent at night, Alma stared at the ceiling her heart heavy with confusion. She hadn't come here looking for anything beyond adventure, and yet Musa's presence was stirring something inside her, a longing she couldn't quite name. The camp was quiet under the canopy of stars, the distant sounds of wildlife creating a symphony of the night. Musa approached Amma with a careful smile, holding a tray with 2 glasses of wine. She looked up from her journal, startled but not displeased. "I thought you might enjoy this," he said, placing the tray on the small table between them. Amma hesitated for a moment before accepting the glass he offered. "This is thoughtful," she said softly, her voice almost drowned by the chirping crickets. "You've been quiet today," Musa observed, leaning back in his chair. His gaze lingered on her face, studying the lines of experience and grace that age had etched there. "I've had a lot on my mind," Amma admitted, swirling the wine in her glass. "This trip has been different from what I expected." "Different good or different bad?" he asked, his tone light but his eyes searching. "Good," she said quickly, then paused. "But complicated." Musa didn't press her, allowing the silence to stretch comfortably between them. The firelight cast flickering shadows on their faces, softening the sharp edges of reality. "Can I ask you something?" Amma finally said, breaking the quiet. "Anything," Musa replied without hesitation. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life, like the person you were supposed to be got lost somewhere along the way?" Musa thought for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "I used to. After my father died, I felt trapped by responsibility, like my dreams didn't matter anymore. But then I realized something: the life you want doesn't just find you, you have to fight for it." Amma nodded slowly, his words resonating with her. "I envy that clarity. I've spent so much time being what others needed me to be: a wife, a mother, a teacher. I don't know who I am outside of those roles." "You're more than the roles you play," Musa said, his voice firm. "You're here exploring the world. That takes courage." Their eyes met, and for a moment Amma felt seen in a way she hadn't in years. The walls she had built around herself began to crack, letting in the warmth of his presence. Without thinking, she reached out and placed her hand on his. The touch was brief but electric, sending a jolt through both of them. Musa didn't pull away, his gaze steady and unreadable. "I shouldn't have done that," Amma said, pulling her hand back quickly, her cheeks flushing. "Why not?" Musa asked gently, his voice low. "Because it's inappropriate," she whispered, looking down at her glass. "Inappropriate doesn't mean wrong," Musa said, leaning closer. "Sometimes the things we're told not to want are the things we need most." Amma's breath caught as his words hung in the air. Slowly Musa reached out, his fingers brushing against hers again. This time she didn't pull away. The world seemed to shrink, leaving only the two of them in the glow of the firelight. When Musa leaned in, Amma's heart raced, but she didn't stop him. Their lips met in a tentative kiss, soft and hesitant at first, but deepening with each passing second. It was a moment of surrender, an acknowledgement of something that had been building between them since the day they met. When they finally pulled apart, Amma's eyes were filled with tears she couldn't explain. Musa reached up and gently wiped one away, his touch tender. "You're allowed to feel," he said quietly. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Amma didn't respond, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. All she knew was that for the first time in years she felt alive. The journey back to the city was filled with a silence that spoke louder than words. Amma stared out of the window, watching the savannah give way to smaller villages, and eventually the outskirts of Nairobi. Musa occasionally glanced at her, but neither of them addressed what had happened the night before at the hotel. Musa helped her with her luggage for what felt like the last time. Their eyes met briefly, and Amma opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. Musa gave her a small understanding smile and stepped back, allowing her the space to process. Later that evening, Alma sat on the edge of her bed staring at her phone. A message from Claire popped up. "Call me when you can." She sighed and pressed the call button, dreading the conversation she knew was inevitable. "Hi Mom." Claire's voice came through, sharp but concerned. "How's the trip?" "It's been eye-opening," Alma replied cautiously. Claire hesitated before speaking again. "I've been worried about you. I know this trip was supposed to help you heal, but something feels off. Are you okay?" Alma's grip tightened on the phone. She wanted to tell Cla everything: the loneliness, the unexpected connection with Musa, the kiss that had shaken her to her core. But how could she explain something she barely understood herself? "I'm fine, Cla," she said instead, her voice steady but distant. "You don't need to worry about me." After the call, Alma felt restless. She wandered to the hotel balcony where the city lights stretched out before her. The cool night air did little to calm her racing thoughts. She had made choices during this trip that defied every expectation she had set for herself. She wasn't sure if she regretted them, but she knew they had changed her. The next morning, Muse arrived at the hotel to escort her to the airport. The ride was quiet, but there was no tension between them, only an unspoken understanding. When they arrived, Musa stepped out to help her with her luggage one last time. As they stood at the curb, Alma finally found her voice. "Thank you, Musa, for everything." Musa looked at her, his expression warm but bittersweet. "You don't have to thank me. You've taught me as much as I've taught you." Alma smiled, but her eyes betrayed the sadness she felt. "I don't know what happens next." "Neither do I, Musa Admitted, but that's life, isn't it? We just have to keep moving forward. Before she could second guess herself, Alma reached out and hugged him. It was a brief embrace, but it carried the weight of all the things they couldn't say. When they pulled apart, Musa stepped back, giving her a small wave as she walked into the terminal. On the plane, Alma sat by the window, her mind replaying moments from the trip, the laughter, the conversations, the kiss. They were memories she would carry with her forever. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt a quiet sense of resolve. Back home, Alma began writing letters to Claire. They were honest, raw accounts of her life, her grief, and her journey toward rediscovery. She didn't mention Musa by name, but his presence was woven into every word. Months later, she came across an article online about a young African entrepreneur who had started a successful tour company. The accompanying photo showed Musa standing proudly in front of a safari jeep with his team. Alma smiled, her heart swelling with pride and a touch of longing. As she closed her laptop, she leaned back in her chair, a bittersweet peace settling over her. Life was unpredictable, messy, and full of surprises, but for the first time in years she felt like she was finally living it.